Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grinberg and bigz. He is Grinberg. I am bigz. Welcome to Fantasy Free Agent Frenzy. Who are the winners? Who won the madness, Mike? That's what we're here to talk about. We each have three players that we've picked out that are going to benefit from this initial free agency period. We had the tampering time where they could talk and come to agreement on deals, and then we had that end and people started signing. There's been a whole lot of player movement. Somebody said in a show we did last night that there wasn't a whole lot going on, and I had to push back on that because there has been a lot going on, but it's not necessarily with skill players moving from team to team. But we are going to talk about that. I feel like you have three quarterbacks even, but also like the Chicago Bears upgrading their offensive line, the Denver Broncos upgrading their defense. These moves are all going to have an impact on the fantasy level. We're not going to necessarily talk about all of them, but there's some nuance there, and we'll add that when it fits. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm looking forward to seeing your number one guy because this is a big time sleeper. And remember last year, Biggs, when you got the crowd on none other than Darnell Mooney, who ended up being a top 24 wide receiver. I think
top 26
ish, yeah,
30-ish. But anyway, I called for him to have a big year, and he had a big year.
He had a great year, and I think you have a little bit of foreshadowing of this player coming up. So I'm excited to see who your number one player is. But
I have a big-time March flag plant that I think is going to absolutely smash that nobody but me sees coming. And so if you want to hear that, you got to wait till the end of the show.
Yeah, but let's get into some of the lesser names here. That signed that are kind of like some big time winners in this offseason. Biggs, who do you got as your number three guy?
So my number three guy is, and you'll sense a theme here. I have a couple. I'm a Raiders fan. Raheem Mostert. I feel like he signed the other day, and I feel like he's a winner. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate into fantasy production in 2025. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, as of the second week of March, or Pi Day when we're recording this, happy Pi Day, everybody. Raheem Mostert is 33, will be 33 in the 2025 season. He's 2 years removed from the best season of his career, which he had at the age of 30. He had over 1,000 yards. He led the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 18 and touchdowns from scrimmage with 22. He signed a 1-year deal with the Raiders for $2 million, which is not nothing. It's he's cuttable. They could definitely move on from him, but he's entering a running back room that lost Alexander Madison, who wasn't really a great asset in the first place. Zamir White is there. Sincere McCormick is there. Dylan Laube is there. Chris Collier is there. Amir Abdullah is there. This is a running back room that has a dearth of talent. I liked Zamir White last year. He dealt with a lot of injuries and pretty poor offensive line play, bad offensive coordination to start the season off. That's all getting fixed over there in Las Vegas. And Raheem Mostert, the reason he's a winner is because he has an opportunity to step in there and say, look, I'm not washed. I can be your 1,000-yard, 10-15 touchdown guy. That's a pretty great opportunity. Again, I'm not saying he's going to take the reins of the backfield. They very well could draft a couple of young running backs in 40 days from now when the draft happens, and then he might be a draft loser. But as of today, the opportunity that has presented itself to Raheem Mostert, he is a fantasy winner.
Yeah, I like that call, Biggs. I mean, he's not far removed, like you said, from a great season. He pushed close to 20 touchdowns, I think, 2 years ago. So that's a huge feat. And if he can get back onto that train, I know that Las Vegas may not be as in good of scoring position, and he's got to stay healthy. But that backfield is up in the air right now, and you never know what could happen. So he definitely is a winner.
The sign on the wall from 2024 was 12 games and fewer than 300 yards rushing. That's not great, Bob.
No, not at all. But we'll see what happens there. It's an open backfield, and he's a winner, that's for sure. I'm going to talk about a quarterback as my number three guy, and I think that Matthew Stafford was one of the top winners this offseason so far. He restructured his contract, signing it. Now he's, solidified himself as the quarterback through probably till 2026. And it's allowing the Rams to focus on building a better offensive unit around him. And they just, I think they hit the jackpot this offseason and picking up Devontae Adams, which further bolsters Stafford's chances to elevate his game. I know Cooper Kupp was there last year, but I think that Devontae Adams is at a better spot in his career, and I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank, and I think this is a great landing spot for him. It's going to make really good sense. Matthew Stafford's been able to, produce two, wide receiver ones at times throughout a season here. And I don't see this getting any different here. He's got about 20 fantasy points per game over the last 12 games in 2024. It shows promise. And then bringing Adams in, I think, is just going to really solidify things for him. Puka Nakua coming into his third year. He had a great rookie season and he was plagued with a little bit of injury last year, but still finished really strong. So I look for that connection to stay strong. So I just think that this move here by the Rams is great for Matthew Stafford, and then keeping him in the system here for a couple more years is a good situation there, bigz.
Yeah, absolutely. And there we know that if there's one thing about Sean McVay, it's that he likes to bring in older wide receivers. We saw him do it with Odell Beckham Jr. We saw him do it with Demarcus Robinson. We're seeing him do it now with Devontae Adams, guys who are in the last 1/3 of their career, but still have some production that's on the table. And Devontae finds himself in a great spot. And probably a more competent situation than he would have had if he and Aaron Rodgers had stayed with the Jets. So, Devontae Adams, we could call him a winner too, but we're sticking with your Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about Devontae Adams, I think 2 weeks ago on our show, being a guy that I'd be staying away from in his current situation. But 2 weeks later, his ADP is going to be around the same, and he's in a way better situation. So he's a little bit more intriguing to me in redraft at this stage. So we'll see what happens this offseason and how his connection is in, if he's going to breakfast with Matthew Stafford, and creating that relationship. Now, bigz, who do you got as your number two guy?
So my number two guy is somebody that I had as one of my guys to target for the course of the season based on his season that he had last year. And that's Kanan Smith-Njigba's brother, Jaxon. Jaxon Smith-Njigba in Seattle. There was kind of a question for a second about who was going to be throwing the ball to JSN. And that question was answered when Sam Darnold came over to be the Seahawks quarterback. Last year, JSN had 73% of his snaps out of the slot position. And Sam Darnold was one of the better quarterbacks throwing to the slot. So that's going to be a synergistic relationship that they have. And there's no DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett to kick around anymore. JSN, who had his breakout last year, is going into his third year. We knew this kid was coming a few years ago. He was, my first draft pick in a rookie draft in my home league. And we knew he was coming. He had his breakout last year. And look at what the Seahawks did. They said, everybody else get out of here. This is the Jaxon Smith-Njigba show. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. He's going to absolutely go off this season.
I love that call, bigz. He's got less competition. People are like, well, who's going to take the pressure off of him? Well, you know what? There's going to be a lot of targets to be funneled his way. We know that the offensive line for the Seahawks is suspect at times, and he's going to need to get the ball out, Sam Darnold, and quick. And who's going to be a safety blanket? The slot receiver. So I love this call. I think he could see upwards of 150 targets, I think, this year, and get about 120 catches. So that's a huge season. And then some touchdowns upside. This could be the season for JSN to get the next step and become like an elite tier wide receiver. He already broke out last year and finished in the top 10, but this could be a monster season for him. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Absolutely.
Now for my next guy, I'm going to talk about another quarterback, and it's just kind of my theme of the day here is quarterbacks are the winners. There's a couple quarterbacks that I felt that lost in this, but a winner for me is Jaden Daniels. And the reason behind it is because, after his great rookie season, he's now in a position to, take that next step. They made bold acquisitions, the Commanders. They got a 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, and the addition of wide receiver Deebo Samuel. It demonstrates the commitment to building a team around to support Daniels in his second year. I think they're going all in the next little while when they have him on his rookie contract. The Commanders are not only improving their offensive line, but also giving dynamic skill set receiver to work with in Deebo. So, 3,500 passing yards last year, 25 passing touchdowns, 864 rushing yards, and another 6 touchdowns on the ground. He averaged 6 yards per carry. I think this is just going to get better and better as we see it coming here, Biggs. And sky's the limit for Jaden Daniels. I'm aggressively pursuing him in a lot of my leagues that are drafting. And I'm going to be getting a lot of Jaden Daniels, especially if he's going as like the quarterback 3 or 4 in drafts and redraft. I'm going to have him probably push my number 1 quarterback at this stage. I'm going to go bold here already, Biggs, because you do it.
Yep. I'm pretty excited about 2025. I'm looking in my home dynasty. I'm looking at Jaden Daniels as my quarterback, Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Malik Neighbors as my 2 primary wide receivers, Brock Bowers as my tight end. I've done a lot of building through the drafts the last couple of years. I'm going to continue to do that, but I think that we have some players in line that are absolutely going to smash in 2025, and that's great. And looking at Jaden Daniels, that 800 plus rushing yards is delicious, especially from where we are.
Yeah, I love that. And
do you know where we are?
We are here, Biggs.
We are here.
And you know where we are? We're going to be able to, provide our viewers with some concrete rookie guide specifics coming up here. We got a rookie guide going to be released right after the draft that a lot of us on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network have been putting a lot of work into. You're going to be able to find it on the Fantasy Sports Advice website. It's a community where everybody goes to hang out and talk ball, but you can also find all our great content. And Biggs, tell us a little bit more about the rookie guide and what you've been putting into it.
Well, it's going to be absolutely comprehensive. We have a team of guys who are putting it together. Everybody was assigned different rookie players to talk about. Essentially, we're going with about 48 to 60 guys who will be available in rookie drafts. So we're going to highlight the top guys. We've been tracking them since the Senior Bowl. We have their combine numbers that are added. We're putting in pro day analysis. We're going to have a comprehensive guide for each of those rookies that you're going to be wanting to take in your dynasty drafts or in your redraft next year. You'll have a big report from guys who have been doing the analysis, watching the tape, checking out the analytics models. We've gone deep, and we've got a bunch of guys who are putting in a ton of hard work, and it's going to be fantastic.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. That's why I gave the floor to you, because you said
You could have.
So well. But before we get into your number 1 guy, Biggs, because everybody's waiting for this one, I'm going to get into my number 1 spotlight and the guy who I thought won this offseason so far. So I'm going to talk about Justin Fields' big move to the Jets, and now he's stepping into another prime opportunity with the Jets. And we know what happens when Justin Fields is a starting quarterback. It just makes fantasy football magic. 26 years old, the former Ohio State standout has consistently shown top 10 potential when he's been the starter in the league. He may not be a great quarterback as an NFL quarterback, but
he's terrible.
When he's a fantasy football quarterback, right, Biggs? He finished
absolutely
2022 as the QB5 in fantasy points per game. He's got great rushing production. His 2022 season, he rushed for over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. And now he's got a 2-year, $40 million contract, which shows that he's, getting the car keys to run that offense. And he's going to have a little bit of a leash here. Tyrod Taylor is going to be his backup, which is going to, show him, some veteran presence. He's not going to push him to be the starter, but he's going to help him develop, which I think is a good thing. You never know what could happen, but if Justin Fields is a starting quarterback in the NFL, that is fantasy gold, and I'm just going to be working around that. And Justin Fields was a huge winner for me this offseason, and probably the biggest winner as far as dynasty rosters that, I know we're talking about a redraft show, but dynasty rosters that held on to Justin Fields this year, you're going to see his value be very up in the air at this stage, because people are going to want to value him probably in the top 15, and I could see him pushing the top 12 in redraft big. So huge bump up for Justin Fields.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, he spent some time last year with Russell Wilson, who's another guy that has bounced around, not bounced, but he's been around the league. He's been in a bunch of different systems. He's been with multiple different teams. Tyrod Taylor is another savvy veteran guy. Those are two guys that anything that Justin Fields needs, as to ask, they're there, they've seen it, they can handle the questions. And Justin Fields is another year experience. And we've seen from Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, a lot of those guys, how much, moving through the years can help a quarterback produce. It's one of the reasons why it's so tragic that we've moved to this stage in the NFL where there's so much stock put into top 5 quarterbacks, when what we need is guys to carry clipboard for a couple years and then come out firing like a Jordan Love. Speaking of that, I'm going to get to my guy, but first I'm going to give you a little honorable mention since you have your quarterback theme here, and that's Geno Smith from the Las Vegas Raiders. He is entering a system where he's going to have improved offensive line play. He's got Chip Kelly, who's been around the block. He knows how to put together an offense. He's reunited with Pete Carroll, and he's got 2 pretty great wide receivers in the middle of the field, and that's Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers, 156 targets, I want to say, last year. Going away, he's the tight end 1. Jacoby Myers is a fantastic slot receiver. He only played about 20% of his routes out of the slot last year, but in New England, he was right around 50. So they just need to bring in an X receiver to work the edge, move Jacoby back into the slot. And Geno Smith is going to benefit from all of that stuff. So we saw him have a top 5 season in 2023. He very easily could return to that. So he kind of wins based on his movement as well.
I like that, bigz. I like that a lot because, it looks like your Raiders are going a little all in here and looking to make a push at making the playoffs. So I know that you got another potential Raider in your spotlight. So let's get on with it. Let's do it.
And that leads me into my flag plant, my March hot take. All right. Tre Tucker of the Las Vegas Raiders is a receiver that lines up on the outside. He's what you call a take the top off kind of guy. He runs a lot of go routes. He runs a lot of 9 routes. He does wind sprints. They're like, you just run as far as you can, as fast as you can, and we'll see if we can get you the ball. He's also entering his 3rd year, and we know there are 3rd-year breakouts. That's a wide receiver thing. It takes guys a couple of years to kind of integrate into a system. Tre Tucker has been in Las Vegas for 2 seasons. Now he's going into his 3rd season, and he's going to be doing it with the best quarterback that he's played with so far, and that's Geno Smith. Now, last year, Tre Tucker was 21st in the NFL in deep targets, okay? That means that he is absolutely one of the guys who is going to benefit from a high ADOT in his analytics. And if somebody can put the ball in his hands, he's going to be a big play machine. Gardner Minshew started the year last year, and when all was said and done, he was 25th in deep ball accuracy. Aiden O'Connell took over, played the rest of the year, and he finished at 15th in deep ball accuracy. Geno Smith finished as the number 3 most accurate deep ball thrower, but those are passes over 20 yards in the NFL. Tre Tucker had 760 something unrealized air yards. That was because on those deep balls that he was targeted, he wasn't able to get to the ball because the accuracy from the quarterbacks just wasn't there on enough of the plays. He had 500 something yards. You start adding another 500 yards that were unrealized last year, that brings it down from that ceiling of 700 something. But you start getting that ball into his hands. He ran routes on 90% of snaps for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. If he keeps that snap share and he keeps that top 20-ish deep target in the NFL, he's going to have an incredible ADOT, and he's going to have a deep ball quarterback who's going to get the ball in his hands, and he's going to become fantasy relevant. And you're hearing it here first because I'm the only one that's talking about it. Go out and make sure in your dynasty leagues you're trying to get Tre Tucker because his value will never be lower, and watch for him in redraft leagues coming up in August because nobody's going to see him coming. Best ball, get into underdog right now and start doing the Geno. You start with Brock Bowers and then take Geno Smith and Tre Tucker and make those your underdog stacks. I'm telling you, Tre Tucker is going to unlock a whole lot of stuff this season, and I'm here for it. And I'll pat myself on the back and say I'm the first one to call it.
There you go. And you were the Darnell Mooney caller last year. So let's get on the Tre Tucker train, folks, because bigz knows his Raiders, and we will see them excel. And we're going to see Tre Tucker. Let's go. Awesome show. Next week, we're going to hit up the losers from the free agency frenzy. So there are some losers, and maybe I'll hit up some quarterbacks. You never know.
Or we could do it where I give the 3 quarterback losers and you do other things.
Let's do that. I love it, bigz. And you're going to be here for another one of bigz's bold calls, because that's what he does every week. And he's going to bring the heat, and we'll keep it rocking here on the Fantasy Forecast on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network.
I like to call it data-driven, unhinged bullshit.
There it is. Data-driven, unhinged bullshit. From all of us on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, bigz, what do we do?
We hope you win.
We hope you win. Peace out.